Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Adams, and I'm the lead project manager at the South Florida Water Management District and the program manager for the Cooperative Funding Program. I'll be your monitor and your host for today's webinar. This is our second and final informational webinar for the FY23 DP Alternative Water Supply Funding Program opportunity. We're currently still letting in more attendees, but right now we have over 40 folks on the phone. So thank you for joining us. The webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the CFP website later on. As you know, we're continuing to work in a hybrid environment, so during the presentation and question and answer session, you may hear background noises. So thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. Upon completion of the presentation, I'll have further instructions on providing comments or questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you an overview of the FY23 DP Alternative Water Supply Program and District Cost Share Program process. Governor DeSantis signed an executive order which requested recurring funds for alternative water supply development, and the governor and the legislature recognize the importance of these projects in the protection of Florida's natural systems and have allocated $40 million annually during the past 3 legislative sessions. In 2020, the districts and DEP worked together to develop an AWS guidance document that allowed for a longer schedule in anticipation of future AWS funding allocations. The timeline also lines up better with other DEP grant opportunities as well as prior to the state's fiscal year start. There's 2 different grant fundings available. The first is the DEP AWS Grant Program, which was created in 2019. DEP reviews a prioritized project list from all 5 water management districts and allocates any available funding from the legislature. Applicants are eligible to receive up to 50% of eligible project costs. Second grant project type is the Water Protection Sustainability Program, which was established in 2006, and it's defined in statute. It's in Section 373-707. This is where the district gets 30% of any appropriated funds, and any applicants are eligible to receive up to 40% of eligible project costs. Those funds are restricted to construction costs only for AWS and hardware implementation of water conservation projects. On our website, you'll find our program information and any assistance. It's sfwmd.gov/doingbusinesswithus/COOP-funding. We have a generic email address that you can email staff with any questions you may have. You'll also find the guidelines, the applications, and examples. So in anticipation of AWS funds being appropriated, the district went ahead and released an application on December 1st. Today, as I mentioned, is the second and last informational Zoom webinar. The application does close on March 1st at 4 p.m. Highly recommend you do not wait until the last day to submit your application. During March and April, there's an internal staff review process that's conducted. And in May, the project list is brought to the governing board for approval and transmittal to DEP by the May 31st deadline. As I mentioned earlier, we, along with the other 4 water management districts, submit a prioritized project list to DEP. It's anticipated that DEP will have $40 million to allocate across all 5 districts' project lists. Even though your project may be on the prioritized list, we may not receive enough funds to fund every project on the list. No one is guaranteed funding. Question we get asked: who can apply? You use water, pretty much you can apply. So any public or private entity, local government, tribe, ag, golf courses, HOAs, etc. To be eligible, you must adhere to all applicable instructions, laws, and regulations. New this year, local governments must have an adopted ordinance that comports with the district's year-round irrigation rule. Users that are not eligible to apply for funding is any individual or a single resident homeowner who wants to do a project, and of course, any permittee that is out of compliance with the district or DEP permit. This is a reimbursement program. No one is guaranteed the full 40 or 50% funding. Applicants are responsible to move forward with a project with or without district and state funding. Anticipated dates are the district's fiscal year, which is October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. We've provided dates as an example to applicants to have you better understand if you should be applying for funding or not this year. These dates are subject to change based on the legislative appropriations and any agreements between DEP and the district. Allowable costs are towards the project identified in the application and the construction implementation costs within the funding period. Some of the non-allowable costs include any expenses you incur before or after the funding period, permits, designs, engineering, demonstration, O&M, and in-kind services. As part of that DEP AWS guidance document, they have requested that the districts provide a prioritized list of projects based on some of the following considerations. It should provide regional benefits, supporting MFL water bodies if applicable, additional benefits such as water quality, flood control, projects that are ready to go and have undergone a cost-benefit analysis. Historically, the program's governing board priorities have considered that applicants must be within the district boundaries or provide benefits to our district. It has to be an AWS or conservation project. Construction implementation, again, means no O&M, design, engineering, permitting, etc. Projects should support the district's mission and or an approved regional water supply plan. The district has prioritized projects based on a regional resource considerations such as a restricted allocation area. And for over a decade, the district has been encouraging water conservation through our year-round irrigation rule. So in November of 2020, the district's governing board approved including the irrigation ordinance status as an eligibility requirement beginning in fiscal year 23. During the November 2021 governing board meeting, this was again discussed that during FY22, any local government that had an existing irrigation ordinance that comported with our year-round irrigation rule received bonus points during the review process, and no one was excluded from funding consideration. However, during this FY23 process, having an acceptable irrigation ordinance is now an eligibility requirement for funding consideration. So if you do not have the ordinance and you submit an application, your application will not be moved forward through the internal review process. This is a reminder. It only applies to local governments and not private entities. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Robert to discuss the alternative water supply side of the program. And Robert is our new reuse coordinator.
Can everyone hear me? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Stacy. Yes, my name is Robert Wanderstrat, and I'm the new AWS Reuse Coordinator, and I'm happy to be on this call, and I welcome you all. Where's my? There we go. Sorry about that, folks. The AWS component of the district CFP program provides support for AWS projects that increase water supplies, and that should be done through the development of non-traditional water sources. And that can also include storage for those AWS sources. Non-traditional sources include brackish water, salt water, reclaimed water, excess surface or stormwater, and any other source that's designated as non-traditional in our regional water supply plan. In addition to that, new storage capacity for those non-traditional sources are also covered under this program. However, it should be kept in mind that operations and maintenance projects, even if they are for the development of a non-traditional source, are not part of the covered under this program. Oops, I'm going too fast here. A little difficulty with the slide transition. And there we go. In addition to the project review considerations mentioned previously, the district's project review consideration considers additional guidelines for the AWS projects. Those considerations include whether or not the project supports the goals and or objectives of the district's regional water supply plans, reduces dependence on traditional sources, supports ocean outflow legislation, and if the project contributes to AWS development in a resource-limited area. Now, these considerations, along with the ones the DEP has outlined, provide the guidance for the potential funding. The grant program focuses on the construction of AWS projects. However, not all water supply construction projects are considered alternative water supply. Allowable AWS costs include those covering raw transmission lines, reclaimed water, storage tanks, pump stations, and distribution mains. Also, RO trains and the associated pumping and other equipment that go along with that, ASR wells, brackish water production wells, and concentrate disposal wells that are associated with an AWS source. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm having a little difficulty with the transitions here. AWS costs that are not covered by the program include design permitting and videos or as-built of the construction of finished water projects, including storage tanks or transmission lines if they are for finished water, end user connections and backup generators, and again, operations and maintenance. More examples of non-allowable costs can be found in the guidelines for this program on our website. And the key takeaway for the AWS component of the cooperative funding program that should be kept in mind is that the program, really the essence of this AWS component of the CFP is that the program supports the construction of projects that increase water supply by developing non-traditional sources of water. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Racines Colon, who is our water conservation analyst.
Thank you, Robert. I'm going to talk about the water conservation component of the cooperative funding program. The water conservation component of the cooperative funding program seeks to support projects that improve water use efficiency and conservation. These projects can target an individual property, a business, a farm or nursery, or utilities, infrastructures, and operations. Projects that use hardware or technology to increase water use efficiency are eligible for consideration. These projects can be in the form of a rebate program for residents and businesses managed by a sponsoring entity such as a utility, a local government agency, or even a non-governmental organization. Some examples of projects that have been funded in the past are high-efficiency indoor fixtures or appliances retrofits, automatic flushing devices, irrigation retrofits or rebates, and agricultural or nursery irrigation efficiency improvements. Here are some of the elements that are considered in the review process. The water source being conserved, the quantity of water saved, quality and detail of project application. Is it a project that has an environmental benefit and benefits the community? And one heavily considered item is the cost effectiveness, which is a measure of how much money is spent to save 1,000 gallons of water. Focusing on this allows the districts to stretch its dollar and get the most bang for each buck, while driving applicants to design their projects to be as cost-effective and efficient as possible. Now we'll talk about the two biggest categories of water conservation projects, urban and agricultural. Urban conservation projects usually target devices and systems in existing properties, like indoor fixtures and water-using appliances, or irrigation controllers, sensors, spray bodies, and system audits. Water conservation projects in new construction can also be considered if the builder is working towards a Florida Water Star certification. You can learn more about Florida Water Star by visiting the website floridawaterstar.com. Here we can see some examples for urban conservation projects like the installation of submeters, cooling tower water use efficiency upgrades, advanced meter analytics software, online customer portals directly related to water conservation, among others. Utilities are also encouraged to consider projects that will improve the efficiency of their operations. We are open to consider other types of technology or hardware not listed here that improve water use efficiency. Applicants should be aware that some projects are not eligible for funding. Some examples are indoor fixtures for new construction, unless part of a Florida Water Certification program like we mentioned before, automatic meter reading infrastructure or hardware like antennas, relays, meter, or decoders, wireless urinals, or projects that target practices considered operations and maintenance. For the second category, we'll discuss agricultural and nursery operations. These can be divided into groups. The first one includes projects that convert irrigation systems into more efficient ones, like taking a flood irrigation system and converting it to an overhead irrigation system. The other group includes projects that help improve irrigation management equipment, like installing weather stations, wireless telemetry, or soil moisture probes. Some other examples for agriculture projects are replacing sprinkler heads for more efficient ones, pump system automation, and variable frequency drive retrofits on existing pumps or wells. Other technology or hardware not listed here can also be considered if it improves water use efficiency. Finally, here we can see some examples for agricultural projects that would not be eligible for funding. In general, projects that seek to install new irrigation systems or extend existing systems are not eligible. Neither are culverts or water control structures, replacing old emitters with new ones of the same efficiency or flow rating, new pumps, new filters, fertilization or disinfection hardware or materials, freeze protection materials, construction of tailwater ponds or reservoirs, or the installation of mainline pipes for surface water delivery. Well, that covers the basics for the water conservation component of this cooperative funding program, but potential applicants are strongly encouraged to review the program guidelines to be sure the projects meet all applicable standards and requirements. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation back to Stacy so she can review the program's website.
Thank you. On our website, which is if you go to our main landing page of ffwmd.gov and go to Doing Business with Us and select Grants Funding Opportunities, you'll find everything, including the schedule, as well as the hyperlink to the last webinar we did. Again, the application closes at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, March 1st. I highly encourage you not to wait till the last moment. Scroll down the page, you're going to find the guidelines, the applications, the examples. If you haven't subscribed to get our email listing for future funding opportunities, right above the contact information, there is a please click here to subscribe. I suggest you go on there, enter your email address. I believe it's under local and cooperative funding opportunities is I think how it's listed, but don't quote me on that. If you have any questions regarding the program, you can either email to that COOP funding at sfwmd.gov email that was earlier in the presentation, or you can contact one of us directly at the links provided. If you've downloaded the application, you filled everything out, and you're ready to submit, you're going to go up here to the online submission form, and you're going to click the hyperlink or click here. What I want to caution everybody is on this online submission form, this has changed. So if you have a bookmark from years ago, you please delete that old bookmark and submit your application only through the active link that's been provided. If you've tried to submit an application previously with an old link, you won't get a confirmation number, and your application will not be deemed eligible because we can't get to it. So on the online submission form, you have to fill out all the fields. If for some reason you don't know what your project latitude and longitude is, we do have a little shortcut to click here and enter your address, and it will populate the lat long and decimal degrees, because you have to have that in order to submit your application. We do require at least one file be uploaded. If you're submitting AWS, you need to upload the AWS application in Word format. If you're uploading the water conservation application, it will be in Excel format. You can upload up to five documents, so 4 additional documents for any supporting information to go along with your application. Feel free to do that. And then obviously we have the CAPTCHA for you to so you're not a robot. So at this time, a couple of housekeeping items. So if you are participating via Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature if you have questions. If you're participating via phone, *9 will raise your hand, and *6 will mute and unmute your line. If you do have questions, when I call upon you, I ask that you state your full name and your affiliation prior to providing any comments and or questions. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. I'm going to give you another opportunity. And if not, then I want to thank Robert and Rosina for being our speakers, and I want to thank all of our attendees for joining today's webinar. Oh, we do have someone, Catherine Townsend.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Ma'am.
Hi, so this is really fascinating for me. I'm just a concerned citizen who's kind of like tuned in today just out of pure interest alone in some of the sustainability initiatives that are happening in my district particularly, which is Miami Beach, but then overall in South Florida. I guess I'm just curious, like how many folks are tuned in to today's webinar and what the marketing plan is to get this out there so that folks know that this kind of funding may be available to them. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Right now we have 56 participants on the call today. We have sent out some email blasts to at least 2 different mailing lists, and then also our regional representatives have sent those to their contact list, which I know usually focuses on elected officials. We just recently did, I believe they posted it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and they sent out a "Did you know" information sheet on alternative water supply, and I did see it listed, at least for today's webinar. I saw it advertised on EcoVoice. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for attending, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.